This is KSL Sunday Edition with Boyd Matheson.
Welcome to Sunday Edition. I am Boyd Matheson. Each Sunday we attempt to divide the rage from the reason, elevate the conversation, connect the dots, and make the news make sense. We have conversations with great thinkers, great leaders, and great people making a difference. We talk politics so we can discuss society, and we explore society so we can discuss principles and the people in America who live them. We bring the best and brightest to Utah, and we send the Utah model to our nation's capital and beyond. Emily Belle Freeman was sustained as the Young Women General President for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints on April 1st, 2023. She began her service in August of this year. President Freeman has written more than a dozen books, spoken at a variety of conferences, has been an influencer and a connector, and is a strategic thinker as well as a trusted thought leader on issues of faith, self-worth, and our relationship with God, Jesus, and each other. I had the opportunity to sit down in studio with President Freeman for a deep dive, illuminating and enlightening discussion. Here's our conversation. Well, President Freeman, it is a thrill to be with you today, and you have been busy and promises to keep and lots of miles to go before you sleep. You've been in West Africa. Tell us about that part of your ministry.
Oh, it has been so fun for me to meet young women from all over the world. So I've been to Bethlehem to meet the young women's group there, and just got back from Fiji and was with the young women from all of those islands there. And West Africa was a country that I will never forget. It changed me.
Yeah. Everyone always says that. Everyone says they come home from Africa with Africa eyes.
Yes.
Describe that for us.
That's so true. And people had told me that. And I've traveled a lot. So I thought to myself, well, it won't be new to me, an international view, but it actually was. Africa is interesting because the people are so amazing. And one of the things that I learned from them that left an imprint on my heart is their view of what is sacred. And you see it everywhere there. And so for me to watch what I learned about reverence and respect and what is sacred in their families, but also in their worship, that was life-changing for me.
Yeah, I want to unpack that just a little bit more. It's Christmas Eve day. Yes. as we meet. Give us a sense of that sacred, that reverence, that respect.
Okay, so when we got to that country, we had the opportunity to be in Sierra Leone and Nigeria and Ghana. And we went back into the rural parts of the country. And we were in little homes and villages where people live just right next to each other. And they don't have running water, and they don't have toilets. And so we would watch them as they would take water to each other's houses. And where they live is more of a shelter than like for us, we have rooms that we live in, but more of a shelter. And I saw what it was like to live in conditions that were like that, just very minimal conditions. And then the Sabbath came, and we got ready for church and started on our way to church. And I looked out the window, and what I had seen out the window all week long were people working and selling things and walking to places. And then Sunday was different because those people dressed up in the finest clothes they had. And they walked, all of them, to different churches, members of all different religions, but everybody dressed up in the nicest clothes they owned, walking to this place of worship. And all of a sudden I thought to myself, I don't know where they kept those clothes. And I don't know how they kept them so clean. And how did they press them? I don't know how that happened. But the fact that for them worship included a level of dress that showed respect and reverence, and the fact that the entire country shut down so everyone could walk to church, that was a beautiful thing.
Yeah,
for
that
me.
That is a road to Emmaus moment,
Yeah.
for sure. You see, and that interconnectedness of the communities as they all focus on something different than the hustle and bustle of the everyday. I know part of your ministry there was dealing with the church's focus on nutrition. For young people, you met with leaders, heads of state, community leaders. Give us a sense of that.
So that was a really sweet experience for us. In fact, in Sierra Leone, we got to sit down with the First Lady of Sierra Leone and Nigeria were there. And we talked about women and children in those countries. We talked about food, we talked about education, we talked about empowering women in their homes and in their communities. And that was a really sweet thing for me to see, that importance of women in a community and in a society and the good that they can bring. It was an opportunity I won't ever forget.
Yeah. As I look at that, I'm a guy with 7 sisters, a mother, a wife, 3 daughters, almost 3 granddaughters. As you look at the impact of those women and those young women in particular, give us a takeaway from that.
So one of the things that I loved the most was meeting with that First Lady of Sierra Leone. And on the day we happened to be there, she had called for a day of prayer in the country. And it was a worldwide event that they were having the next day that was to counter abuse against women and to talk about women's rights and the safety of women in a community. And I was so impressed, not just by the initiative, which is amazing, but by the fact that she would start that initiative with a day of prayer. Was just such a lesson to me of that balance of bringing about the good in a society with both religion, but then also social and cultural needs, was just phenomenal to watch.
I want to hit one last thing from an international perspective. In your travels, particularly in Africa and some of these other places you've been, what's been the big surprise thing? What's been the wow moment for you?
So one of my favorite things, and I wasn't sure what this would look like, is how much the people love Scripture and how well they know Scripture. In Africa, when I taught, I would open up my scriptures and I would start teaching from the Bible. We would talk about the New Testament or the Old Testament, and I would tell stories, and they would join the story. They would join in the storytelling with me as we would go through these scriptures, and they were beloved to them, and they are to me. And for me to connect in such a deep and profound way through a spiritual connection was so beautiful, because our cultures are not the same. Our experiences are not the same. In fact, the way we tell story in our cultures is not the same. But when we open up Scripture with each other, all of a sudden we have something in common. And there's something we can talk about. And at the end of the day, it's Jesus. It's a baby that was born in a tiny stable, and the way he changed the entire world. And isn't that remarkable?
Oh, I love that. Well, we're going to do something that you're really good at. Einstein said he wasn't smarter than anyone else, but he could just stay with the question longer. And that's what we're going to do. When we come back, we're going to stay with President Emily Belle Freeman as we stay with the question here on Sunday Edition. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Sunday Edition. We're staying with the conversation with President Emily Belle Freeman of the Young Women's Organization in the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. And as we stay with this conversation, this focus on young women, as a world religious leader, you lead one of the oldest and largest organizations of 12 to 18-year-old young women in the history of the world. What are you learning from them?
So this is one thing I love about the youth of this generation, is that they are a generation that wants to find answers. They want to seek for truth, and they're actually really good at it. They're a generation that can be trusted. And I love, as I sit down and I have conversations with them about what religion looks like today, that they actually have really great ideas and direction for how they want that to look in their life.
Yeah. So often we hear, and in so many places we hear, how young people today are leaving organized religion, they're leaving their faith. But in the Church of Jesus Christ, it's very different. We know there's been an expansion in missionaries and in missions around the world. That's really a counter trend to what we're seeing in a lot of other places.
One of the things that I love is watching these youth empower each other. In fact, there's a darling girl who I know that lives in Utah County, and she gets together with her group of friends. They call it Homie Home Evening. Who loves that name? And they get together once a week with their group of friends to study Come Follow Me. Who does that? That's what our youth are doing. They are finding ways to gather together in small groups and strengthen each other. And they're doing that at weeknight activities, but they're also doing it outside of weeknight activities. They're gathering in backyards, and they're gathering in basements, and they're gathering all over the place to strengthen each other. And don't you think that is amazing?
Powerful.
Yeah.
So powerful. One of the things that you have had a particular interest in is obviously the challenges that young women face, especially with social media. Looking at your life through that comparison lens is
Yes.
always fatal vision. How do we change that narrative and move that from a negative to a positive for those young women?
That's so good, and it's so important because social media is something that is going to be a part of their life. It would kind of be like telling your kids when cars came out, I don't want you to drive because it could be dangerous, and so it'd be better for you just not to. And instead, for 6 months, we sit with them and we teach them how to drive. Social media is the same. It's not going away. It's going to be here to stay. But are we taking 6 months to train our kids how to use social media? Are we helping them train the algorithm on their phone? Are we teaching them you're actually in charge of your Instagram account? So what you see on there, you get to be the boss of. Yeah. And my recommendation always is this: if it makes you feel afraid, if it makes you feel less than, if it makes you feel depressed in any way, right that minute, unfollow. You can do that. You get to choose that. Just unfollow. There are so many places where we can find light and goodness and truth on social media. And there are so many places where we can find darkness and doubt and contention and anger and comparison and all of these things. Unfollow. And as parents, we need to teach that. We need to teach them this is a healthy pattern for using social media, because this will be a part of their life for the rest of their life. But along with that, adding to light and teaching them, add your voice, be a light on the hill, bring goodness and Jesus into these conversations.
Yeah, I love that. I love one of the things that you're doing in your ministry, which is using that social media as a way to build a community of Christ all around the world. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so one of the fun things that we've done is on our council, we have 9 mature women on the council, but we've got 5 young single adults on our council that are in this with us, and they helped us come up with this social media account. That word worldwide came from one of those 5 girls who said, let's have this be inclusive. Let's invite everybody, anyone who is a young woman worldwide can come. And what will they find here? Goodness. It is a resource of ideas for gathering and for strengthening faith, but it's also what you just said. It's a place to find community. It's a place to find people who believe in the same way you believe. It's a place for strengthening a testimony of Christ, but also finding belonging.
Yeah, I love that sense of belonging. And just in our last few seconds here, President Freeman, give us a little thought on this Christmas Eve day for the young women of the world.
Well, one of the things I love about Jesus Christ is that the sign of his coming was light. When you think about in 3rd Nephi, what was the sign? A night with no darkness. The wise men, a light in the sky. The shepherds, the light that came down with the announcement of his birth. The sign of Jesus Christ is light. And hopefully today, somewhere on this Christmas Eve, you will light a candle, or you will turn on Christmas lights, or you will find a way to bring light into your home, into your life, into your worship, into your celebration.
Oh, fantastic. President Emily Belle Freeman of the Young Women of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, thank you for joining us on this Christmas Eve day.
Well, thank you for having me.
All right, more Sunday Edition coming up next.
Well, welcome back to Sunday Edition. On this Christmas Eve day, I am thrilled to have back with us in studio Bishop Phyllis Spiegel, the 12th Bishop of the Episcopal Diocese of Utah. She's passionate about the Episcopal Church's work of deepening discipleship through daily practices of faith. And she actually shows how deepening our daily walk with God, what that looks like, what that acts like, and how it can profoundly change the way
we actually walk with each other in the world. Bishop Spiegel, welcome back. Merry Christmas to you. And
Merry
I have
Christmas.
to let you know, you are a first. This is historic. You are the first two-time guest on Sunday Edition. So Merry Christmas.
What an honor. And to be here on Christmas Eve is really exciting and fun.
Yeah, well, you have been such a powerful force in our community. And as we look at this Christmas Eve day, as we all prepare for Christmas and all the hustle and bustle that goes on, there's some things that we need to look a little deeper or a little differently at. And you often talk about that in the context of Advent. Explain that for us.
Oh, yes. So it's a little funny for me to say Merry Christmas because Episcopalians are pretty strong on the 4 weeks of Advent prior to Christmas. And so we really hold into that period of waiting. And so Advent is the time that doesn't count down to Christmas, but rather observes the power of the incarnation. And we sort of, the prayer we had last Sunday was to stir up the waters, God, like stir it up in us. And so that's what we're looking to do. Advent, so the funny thing is this year, the fourth Sunday of Advent is Christmas Eve.
Yeah.
So I'll be preaching fourth Sunday of Advent in the morning and Christmas Eve in the evening. So it's a little bit fun.
I love that it's not a countdown. It's actually a count up and a connection to.
And into, right.
Yeah.
This year, we've had a lot of fun. Every year, God gives a new lens. You think, how can there be something new to Advent or the season of Christmas? And there always is. And this year, I've been focusing with folks on the past, the future, and the present in the terms of Advent shaping our Christian faith as a whole. And the way we look at that is the past is the incarnation. So the Word incarnate coming into this world, the light of God shining into this world. The future being the second coming of Christ, when the time when none of us know when that is, but that we know that God's world will be made whole and healed and brought to fullness. And so that brings us to the present, which is how you did the intro. I talk a lot about how we are right now because that's where our work is. And so I'm really leaning into this year. It's a hard year for people, Boyd. It's the Holy Land is in war. And when I make my visitations, people are saying, Bishop, what am I supposed to do with this? So I'm wondering if your listeners also are feeling that pull of how do we sing O Little Town of Bethlehem and know the sorrow and the strife and the pain and the suffering that is happening in the Holy Land.
And finding that in the present, and I think it's one of your unique gifts, Bishop Spiegel, is that ability to be present. We always say that being present is the holiest gift you can give to another person. I think during this season where we're racing and chasing and all of those things, sometimes it gets pretty hard to be present. And you have talked about it in the context not just of recognizing what's going on in the Holy Land, not just what the challenges we face in community, but individual lives. So how should we approach being present with people, those around us, during this season?
Love, right? It's always the start is to love and to realize that I'm engaging with people because I see in them the reflection of the divinity. I mean, if I start there, and that sounds lofty or even might sound kind of kitschy, you know, but it's the deepest truth that if I humanize you and then go even further, I say, I see the divine in you. Then I'm probably not going to grouse about you as much, or I'm going to be empathetic with you. I'm going to understand your walk.
So powerful.
Can I share with you a little wisdom from Archbishop Desmond Tutu that really changed my life on this? He brought to the world the South African understanding of Ubuntu, which means that I am because you are. There are lots of ways to talk about it. I am because you are. As it goes with you, so goes it with me. And so when you start really leaning into that, you can think about the people you're going to gather with. So if people think about the family that they'll be with or the people who don't have what they have, anywhere that they want to connect deeper on a spiritual level to other people, to lean into that. As it goes with you, so goes it with me. And then to begin to say, oh, wait a minute. We think about that in terms of sorrow and compassion and, you know, the hard things of life. But what if it's true of the joy and the hope? What if you What if you have the ability, what if the person sitting on the couch listening to this has the ability right now to say, the joy and the hope that I bring into this moment, this day, out of my understanding of what I want the world to be, I believe the world should be, could change the world, could change the people I encounter. And that if they can't hold hope and joy because they're in war-torn or poverty or things that are strife in their family, but that I can hold that for them. And that's the light, right? That's the light we light.
And then we reflect and we bring that back. That joy is so crucial. As you look at that, and again, those that are heavy, those that are full of sorrow, how else can we be engaging and showing that joy, reflecting that light back to them?
I think the number one thing is to never tell someone, be happier. Just don't do that. This is bad.
Bad strategy.
The bad strategy. So let's get that one off the table. Really, the way is to say, I will sit with you. And just be. And you don't have to be, your tinsel and jingle bell earrings don't have to be falling over onto them. You simply sit and you just are. And you just witness to where they are. And man, if more people could do that, then, because there's no expectation that that the joy is seen as outward happiness. Because the joy can actually be, because someone is sitting next to me, I feel a joy I didn't minutes before.
Powerful, something we all should be thinking about. Very Merry Christmas. You have been a great gift. One of the great gifts of 2023 in my world has been connecting into your world. Bishop Spiegel, thank you so much for joining us today.
What a blessing to be with you, and might I wish your viewers a blessed Christmas tide, and to remember that we are the light in this world, and it matters who we are and how we are.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
Well, that wraps it up for us on Sunday Edition. I'm Boyd Matheson. Thank you so much for joining us today on this Christmas Eve day. Have a very Merry Christmas. And as always, as you go out into the world today, make sure you see something that inspires, say something that uplifts, and do something today that makes a difference. Music and the spoken word is next.